So this week we have Travis McKenzie on the show, and I've known Travis for a number of years. I met him in Vancouver while he was working with Lululemon, and he was a spin instructor too, and a coach, and just an all-around great guy. And then we've kept in touch over the years, and he's now living in Maine, and he's an Aussie guy. So you're going to hear a lot of stories of, like, bands that he liked in the Australian days growing up, and he's a dad to two children. He's a great husband. He does lots of charitable work, and he likes to get behind causes and get people psyched up and do things and accomplish things. And now he's with Super Sapien, which is a pretty cool company, working with high-level athletes, and they're actually the title sponsor for a lot of Ironman races. So yeah, I think Travis is in his element and doing some great stuff. So we had a chance to talk to him about music, and it was a fun one. So here you go, Travis McKenzie. Chris, I don't know if you know this, but Travis and I have known each other for some time in Vancouver. Not very well though. He was at Lululemon, and then I saw him quite a bit at the spin studio when I decided to get fit again. And he would either be taking a class or he'd be leading classes. And then we reconnected a little more solidly exactly a year ago, because he did the month challenge, but it was the day that a mile a day? Like, how did we? Yeah, what was the terminology for that?
The calendar club.
The calendar club. Yeah. So that was. Travis talked about this maybe a week previous. He's building up a little bit of the hype on Instagram. I'm like, man. So the whole idea of the calendar club is that July 1st, you run a mile, July 2nd, 2 miles, so on and so forth. By the time you get to today, July 20th last year, he ran 20 miles, with knowing that tomorrow he's running 21 until he gets to 31. So I'm not, especially at that time, I hadn't run too much. I'm like, this would not be doable, but I transformed it into paddling. So I did 1 kilometer for every day. And that roughly is about the same type of pain, but it's so different because, with you, Travis, that pain on the joints and the knees, like I don't get impact, so it was just a matter of getting it done and the mental. But, at that time last year, how much music was going on in your run? Like getting pumped up, winding down, but having, like, it was alone a lot of the time. And a lot of the days, I know you broke them up as it got longer. You would do 4K, 5K, take a little break, and being a dad and having businesses, like, those are full days. Did you get any music in, and did that help?
Yeah, absolutely. So, connecting with you on that was great. And there was some dark moments where I thought, I wonder what Brad's doing now. And it was actually really cool to have that kinship from a distance. Yeah. And when I did set out on the calendar club, my wife, Lauren, who you've met before and know from Vancouver as well, she said to me, you can do it. The only thing is you don't skip a breakfast, you don't skip a bedtime, and you've still got time for us as a family. And I was like, fine. All right, I'll give it a shot. I'll do it. Which meant, very early mornings so that I'd get mileage in the morning before getting the kids up and breakfast. And then quite often mileage, this time of night, I'd be, running 10 miles at 8 o'clock at night when the kids are in bed. So as you say, there was a lot of alone time there for sure. And I went through waves, quite honestly, of kind of what I was listening to and what I would do during those days. There was days where I'd listen to multiple audiobooks, or I'd get through, the Rich Roll book on tape again, or I'd listen to Malcolm Gladwell podcasts. But there was probably a good chunk in the middle of the month where I actually went back and kind of looked at my musical histories, as it would, and just went through this kind of discography of, like, times in my life where I remember music playing a role, and just listening to entire albums. And it's so easy and accessible now with Spotify and all these automatically generated playlists based on what you're listening to at the time. So I found myself really digging into and just zoning out with some of the stuff that I remember listening to 10, 15, 20 years ago, and some way back playbacks that I'd never thought, that you wouldn't remember listening to if it wasn't for kind of being prompted by having so much time on my hands to try and zone out effectively at times. So
yeah. Now, when you talked about those time periods, do you remember some of those time periods that you referenced where you were like, God, this reminds me of high school, or this reminds me of the college days, or this reminds me of, especially like being events, the events person for Lululemon, there was a big part of music there. Do you remember like the genres that you were tapping into?
Yeah, I actually do. I remember going back to, and this was one of my first memories of music playing a big role in my life was, and this is where I'm going to go. I'm jumping off the cliff. I'm diving right in here. So stay with me. But I trained for my second Ironman in 2007. So, quite a few years ago now. And it was really when the time of iPods where, you had an iPod and you were able to kind of put the music on that you wanted and what have you. But I remember listening to Kanye West Graduation over and over and over again. Like it was on repeat in training. It was on repeat when I was stretching and zoning out. And I remember that being vividly from that time. And I remember leading into the race, like the night before, just laying on my bed, kind of looking up at the roof, listening to that album from start to finish. So that I actually started there. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, where can I go back to where I tied sport together, where I tied this emotion of feeling powerful and strong and accomplished. And I started there. And then it just kind of went from there, quite honestly. But, I was able to tie back to that initial moment of listening to that album on repeat in a sporting sense and in a sporting environment. So.
And that was in 2007. You said you were living in Oz still, right?
I was. Yeah. So I had my first kind of venture or adventure overseas was in 2005. So I was 23 years old. I'd kind of just finished university. And I came to the US and I taught mountain biking as a camp counselor at a summer camp in upstate New York. And that was kind of my first adventure outside of Australia, as I say, and really my first introduction into music outside of Australia and kind of the Australian genre. There was little pieces of it in high school, but it was very much, we had access to a lot of great Aussie music growing up. So it was kind of my first introduction, in particular, to rap music and hip hop and that genre of kind of storytelling from the streets. I was first introduced to that on my first trip to the US in 2005. So I came back from that trip with a newfound appreciation for rap and hip hop, and that's kind of the 2007. I was still living in Australia after that trip, but that was kind of my gateway into that genre of music.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, we were talking before about tying Australia and North America, and he just led into it. Yeah, I think you've got a few thoughts on this, haven't you?
Well, I mean, of course, the impact of Australian music certainly, in terms of Canada anyway, came on very, very strong in the 80s, maybe a little bit before your prime listening. But the importance just sort of, it was wave after wave, and I think there was a subtlety to it because there was never it was never a big tsunami of Australian music, but it was very, very well curated picks and bits and pieces of fantastic bands. My all-time favorites, Midnight Oil.
Yeah,
Mr. Garrett's Politics made it for a very exciting time. I had a very brief encounter with the band and really enjoyed their time. But there were bands like that, and I related more towards sort of the energetic punk side of it. But I've always appreciated the spirit of it, and I think there's a connection between Canadian touring bands and Australian touring bands in that the space between towns is so vast that the connection that bands have as a cohesive unit forms in the vans between these towns. It's a different experience in America, for sure. But I think there's something about the camaraderie of Australian bands and Canadian bands, mostly based on the time they spend together when they're not playing.
Yeah.
And I love the vibe, and there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I love your perspective there, and I hadn't really thought about it that way. The way that I'd always thought about it was maybe a little bit of like trying to get out, or a bit of a chip on your shoulder, the big brother in the US, even more so probably for Canadian artists. If you make it big in Canada, so what? Or if you make it big in Australia, so what? If you really want to make it big on a global stage, then you have to make it big in the US. So I always kind of thought about it from that perspective of, there was always this longing for more. And maybe that was my own personal bias for wanting to get out and explore the world as well, and wanting to, break free of the Australian lifestyle. But I love your perspective on that, Chris. And I actually remember going to small shows in Australia for some of these bands, some of the Aussie bands, whether they were up and coming or established, where they'd play in we call them car parks, car parks of surf clubs, or the car park of a pub, or even in the pub, and kind of, where were you when you saw that band for the first time type moment on the rise and on the way up, and even some of the touring, and I can talk about some of the bands. So Grinspoon was one. Silverchair was another.
Sure.
These are kind of bands that were around my time when I was really starting to get into and find my own, I guess, my own feel for music, after having to live with and put up with whatever mum and dad wanted to listen to at the time. But I remember even touring like Unwritten Law and Blink-182 before they were massive, coming and playing these small shows that, there would be an Aussie up and coming band that would play before, and everyone just kind of standing there having a beer and just having a good time. And really cool kind of memories from growing up as well.
I think there may be an environmental twist to it too. Canadian bands suffer incredible temperature swings, being stuck in a van at -30, and I can speak from experience to some degree. But perhaps the heat of touring in certain parts of Australia with a band in the heat of your summer, winter, adds a little bit of adventure to the process of being together in a small metal box traveling across the country. Fascinating perspective there, just to think about the effort that it takes for a band to get to a gig or to play in front of people. Much easier in a smaller geographical footprint like the States, where small towns, or rather, big towns are not that far apart. But the Australian and Canadian experience certainly similar in certain ways.
Yeah.
Hey, Travis, I got this vibe when you just mentioned that, putting up with whatever mom and dad played in the house. And I'm wondering when, a couple things, like what was going on in your house, like from an early age, but I think more importantly is like, what was your big influence that got you into music? Was it hanging out with your mates? When did that happen? Or did you discover a band? Like, how did you get your musical, feed? And so much that, especially at the time when you figured out what you liked, where did that kind of come from?
Yeah, I think that really came from going to high school, honestly. As I mentioned, growing up, mum and dad would play golden oldies on the radio. And I had this joke, my mum would sing along and I would say to her, Mum, who sings this song? And she'd tell me the band. I'm like, let's keep it that way, because she would be singing. I'm like, Mum, this is terrible. So that was kind of memories of me growing up. So I was kind of always like avoiding music because it just was this horrible thing that mum and dad would sing along to. And then my sister was 7 years older than me, and she had her own, teenage angst where she'd go in her room and listen to her Walkman or what have you. So it was never really something that I got into personally. I was more interested in, sport and those type of things. And it wasn't until high school that I remember, just meeting a whole different group of friends and, people coming from different primary schools to mixing and mingling with different folks. And, some of my mates were, they're in bands or they were starting their own musical journey. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. So I was kind of introduced to, I remember my first CD that I bought was Frog Stomp by Silverchair. And I just played that back to front, up and down, side to side. And that was kind of, my gateway into that genre of kind of, teenage angst, punk-ish music that, we had some great bands in Australia like Grinspoon that I mentioned. And then, leading into kind of the Unwritten Laws, and then further into like Limp Bizkit and Rage Against the Machine, and, all of these kind of bands that were big at the time, late 90s, early 2000s. And I was really just influenced by my mates and what we were all kind of into. And there was these outdoor festivals too called Big Day Out in Australia, and it was a lot of Aussie music, but it was also a lot of big bands coming and touring. They'd do a summer festival season like a Lollapalooza or a Coachella or something like that, but they'd stop in different cities along the way. And that was always an annual thing that all of me and my mates would go to. It would always happen at summertime. It was late December, early January. I just remember, being drunk and sunburned and just having, an amazing time with my friends. And that kind of just, was something that we all look forward to for the summertime. So,
we've discussed this with people who are athletes, and, I think Chris first posed the question a while ago of like, athletes want to be musicians, musicians want to be athletes. Did you ever go flip-flop? Did you ever go, oh man, I need to be on that stage? Or, what's your role in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I always had an inkling that would never happen for me. And I'll tell you why. So I remember in primary school, a vivid memory where it was kind of like mandatory tryouts for the school choir. And the way they did it was had everyone stand up in their chair and start singing the national anthem. And then the teacher would walk along and basically like tap you on the shoulder to sit down. So mine was an abrupt tap on the shoulder to sit down. So I had an inkling that maybe the voice wasn't there. And then I think I got the like mandatory pass in the recorder and music lessons just so that they could like move me on and get me out of there. So I always knew there wasn't a musical bone in my body. Probably also justified by the way my mum sung to the Golden Oldies.
You didn't have a chance.
I had no chance. There was no shot for me at all. So I never really thought like that I would be a big star. I thought maybe I could be the hype man for a rap artist or something and jump around and swing a towel around in the air and do some backbeats or whatever. But yeah, there was never any doubt that I had more talent on the field than on the stage. That's for sure.
That's funny. You and I have a bit of a parallel because I remember very well in grade 7 we had a dedicated art class, and I'm the worst at art, and I actually started the art of negotiation. I was disruptive in class, and I it's not like I don't like art. It's just my hands just don't work. And I went up to the teacher. I said, "Look, you don't want me here. I don't want to be here. I'll go play basketball during art class, and you give me 50%." And she's like, yeah, all over it. So I got to play basketball every art class.
That's incredible. I have a similar parallel story for art as well. Like this probably wouldn't happen these days with kids in the way that teachers are with kids. But I remember I started at a school in the first grade of high school. So we were the first class, and then they added a class below us. So we were the oldest kids all the way through. It was a new town in Australia, kind of a new suburban sub-development community or what have you. And there was this big giant shopping center that was being built there. So they were getting kids from the school to paint a mural at this shopping center. And everyone was kind of getting invited to come and, put their touch on this mural. And I overheard my friends asking, oh, what about Travis? And the teacher said, Travis is crap at art. And she didn't know I was in the room. I heard it and I'm like, all right, there we go. There's my art career gone as well. So I had this in my head for so long that I'm not creative. I can't sing. I can't do whatever. So I found a way to like create in my own right. But yeah, Travis is crap at art. So yeah, this is more a therapy session. I appreciate it, Brad.
That comment would never happen today. That teacher would be removed.
Oh my God. There'd be grief counselors.
Oh, it'd be awful. I was like, you know what? She's right though. Like, let's be honest. This is once again under no illusions. I just wanted half a day off school to go to the shopping center, but
hey, yeah. We talked a lot about the high school years, and I'm curious. This might be out of like kind of order, but when you lead classes, especially the spin class, music's such a big part of getting us hyped up and even a flow of the class. Was it a challenge for you to get those lists going? Because, for a couple of reasons, because the fact that it's almost like when I say restaurants cannot do well in a country club because you've got older people, you got kids, in the spin class, our at Method, it was pretty competitive, but at the same time, you still have people who are there just to sit on the bike and spin the legs and older people. So how tough was that to put those playlists together?
It was awful. It was probably the most challenging part of it. I happy to say I got good feedback on the class. The only negative feedback I ever got was on the music, because I was so interested in playing something that was going to bring my spirits up, and we're going to bring the best out of me and amp me up and help me kind of perform, so to speak, in that element and get the best out of everyone else. Because I figured I can't please everybody. Like, I'm not going to pick a song that's going to make everyone happy and have everyone feel good about it. So if I start with myself and get myself going, then hopefully the class can kind of carry the atmosphere and the environment along with it. So that was the feedback, because I would love rap music. I would love to like stuff that I would like to listen to. And, that, as I say, like, that was definitely feedback I got, was like, that's a terrible song, or I didn't like this music or whatever. So I just brushed it off, because people come, they come. If they don't come, they don't come. And, who cares?
Honestly, I think going into it, thinking that you could please everyone was not going to work anyway. No, so
not at all. And
it's your class, you're in charge.
I like it. I like you, Chris, even more now. I agree. Jamie, it's my class.
Exactly.
Hey, I want to know, you talked about the type of music that you had early on with the Ironman career, and then later on, during the days, and this is about, I think, between your second Ironman and qualifying for Hawaii, that was like a 3-year stretch. Was that the build?
Yeah. What was it? So first one, 2003, 2007, I talked about, and then the next one was 2012. And then, so there was like 2012, 13, 14, 14 were kind of the 3 years of really getting back into Ironman racing and qualifying for Kona.
Yeah. And how did your music change in between those times where where were you living? That one where I know you came back from your leg injury and then it killed it at Ironman at Arizona, like 9:57 or something like that. I'm not sure if that qualified you. Arizona's such a fast course.
It was fast, yeah. But that was actually really my introduction back into the sport. After some injuries and some mishaps and misguided living for a while there. And I remember it's funny you kind of start with that, because I was living in Toronto at the time. I spent 5 years in Toronto before I moved and did the 5 years in Vancouver. And I was actually staying in Arizona doing a training camp. I was coaching at the time, and I didn't really have any obligations other than kind of training and coaching. So I did a month, I think it was a 6-week long camp in Arizona to get ready and prepare for the heat of that race.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to Meek Mill, Dreams and Nightmares, once again, front to back, up and down, side to side, over and over and over again. And I vividly remember climbing up South Mountain in just outside of Phoenix, and listening to that album and really just like in the zone, in the flow state of like understanding the lyrics or trying to put myself in that position, being so removed from that environment and the stories that were being told. I'm a white guy riding my bike, like $5,000 bike, up a mountain in Phoenix, Arizona. Like, how far can you be from the streets of Philly? So I was kind of just like really immersed in the storytelling, and that album really, like, that was my soundtrack of that race and that moment in time for me.
Yeah. Chris, do you have anything you want to jump in here?
Well, I want to use a little touchstone of your time in Toronto, and I was wondering if being an Aussie boy, was there anything about the Toronto music scene that grabbed you? Did you have an opportunity to see live music, or if not, were there Canadian bands that grabbed you?
Yeah, great. So really cool, Chris. at the time I had a girlfriend who was really into electronic music. Like she was into the whole scene, like right, like in. So I was like trying to impress her. So we would go to all these shows at the Government in Toronto, and and I'm like, this is not for me, but she's so cute. I'm gonna stick it out and see what I can get out of this. But we went and saw some like, David Guetta and all these kind of like high profile electronic music artists that would come into town. That was, maybe on a Saturday night. And then the Friday night I was with my mates and we were at Grace O'Malley's and there was like the house band, or we were at like Rolling, is it Stone's place? And there's like, that house band there or what have you. So they were kind of like my early days of music, trying to find my place in Toronto. And then I had a really good mate who was from the US, moved to Toronto. And we ended up, really vibing over our love for rap and hip hop. So I actually went to some amazing shows in Toronto with like Young Jeezy and Rick Ross, and a big stadium show at one of the arenas with the Jay-Z and Kanye arena show. I think Watch the Throne show. So I remember going to some big stadium shows from the rap side of things, but also like just one of the shows, the Jeezy concert I went to, Young Jeezy concert, he never made it because there was a shooting in the crowd. And like, I'm like, what the heck no one got, killed, thankfully. But it was like, I was once again immersed in this world that I didn't really belong in, but I was like right into. So, and I think living in North America for the first time, like really introduced me to the opportunity to kind of see these artists or experience this music that is very rare to experience in Australia. Like those guys aren't touring to Australia very often, or, unless it's a festival, you're not going to see a huge name American band or North American band come. So it was really the accessibility, I think, to music was probably the thing I remember most.
Right. Fantastic. You'll be disappointed to know the government is now a condominium.
Yeah, well, it's probably for the
everything
best.
down there is, it may be.
Yeah.
Hey, Travis, you actually mentioned, alluded to something that we like to talk about with athletes, and it's the flow state and getting that place where it's ethereal and you're in another place almost. But preceding that, we would be remiss, especially now that it's. I wonder how much when you had your accident in 2015, and I told Chris about the accident and how close it was that you wouldn't be walking, and just the incredible comeback to actually do walk again, to do an Ironman. It's crazy, and the mental fortitude. And I know you're a very mentally strong person, and you and Lauren talk about what is your why, and all, like you have a strong mind. During those dark days in the hospital, was music there? Like, or did someone bring in, like, we always talk about, like, especially people in a coma play music, that type of a thing. Yeah. I'm curious. If this is too crazy for you to talk about, fine, but I do wonder if music was part of the recovery.
No, I appreciate the question. You know what, I was trying to think back to that time, and nothing really stood out to me other than I remember really getting into podcasts. That was kind of my first introduction into the podcast world. It was kind of at a time when those, podcasts were really just first starting to become a thing. Yeah. And I remember listening to, it might have even been the first season of the Serial podcast, where it was like this whodunit, like mystery. Yeah. And it was, 30 episodes and they were 3 hours long. It was just this whole thing. And I remember vividly falling to sleep to those most nights. And I think it was probably, like, if I had to think about it, it was probably just a way to escape a little bit, and just get out of my own head, and just kind of like that escapism. But I think I wasn't probably in a place or a mood to like have those celebratory moments or connect to music I just needed something to like zone out to. And I actually remember kind of coming out of the hospital and thinking about, wanting to start my own first podcast. And I actually did it during my recovery. I had like a 5-episode Triathlon Unplugged podcast where it was the first version of my next podcast adventure, being in a voice. But it was, I was kind of enamored with that whole world of just the art of conversation and being able to have those conversations with folks. about something that I love. But yeah, I remember, getting into podcasts at that time, less so getting into music or really leaning into music at that time.
Yeah. And then that goes into like this whole, flow state. And I asked Rach McBride, our friend, when they are in a race, and their answer was interesting because they are a classically trained cellist.
Yeah.
And when Rach talked about the swim, they have Mozart's Requiem going through their head, which is just mind-boggling to me. Anyone else is going to get amped up, like charge. And then they mentioned too about having a few songs in their mind during Ironman Canada. When you raced, did you program some stuff like in terms of like, I want to get to this song, or when I'm in trouble, I want to remember these lyrics, or anything like that? Does music keep you in a place you want to be?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was very determined when I was racing not to listen to music in training a lot of times. I would listen to it on the bike, but I would never listen to music when I was running, because I wanted to hear my breath. I wanted to be connected to my breath. I wanted to be connected to the footfall and really feel everything. I didn't want to have to zone out in run training probably for the reason you're kind of leaning into is I wanted to be present when things got hard. Because I figured if I had a crutch during training, like listening to music and being able to zone out, and if I didn't have that in a race, then I may struggle. So I wanted to like go through those harder times in the run, so that I was preparing myself to tap into a different part of my mind, or just really lean into the pain and the struggle, without having to have that crutch, as you would call it, or I would call it. But I do remember in races, they would always play It's a Beautiful Day before the start of every Ironman event. So I remember always having that stuck in my head and being like, I never want to listen to that or hear that song ever again, because it would just keep coming into your head over and over and over again, because it was like the cliche song that would play before the start of an Ironman race. And then the other thing I would always think about is when you finish an Ironman, there's always music playing. There's always a song happening or playing kind of as they're doing the announcing and introducing you when you finish. I would always try and guess what song would be playing as I would finish. I never got it right, because it was always, something, whatever, if someone's play the announcer's playlist or whatever. But I don't even remember what any of the songs were, but I remember never getting, a 0 from 0 for guessing what song that would be playing. But that's, really the only kind of, as far as racing goes. And now I probably run with music more often than not now, because I have no competitive spirit anymore as far as like wanting to do anything in racing, given the injury and my season of life that I'm in. I'm still, I want to stay fit and take on these challenges like the Calendar Club, but I have no ambition to kind of race or whatever. So it's a good opportunity to kind of like, just zone out, or, some days I'll listen to music because I really want to just have a moment where I don't have to think. Or other days it's actually a perfect moment to think or solve a problem or think about something differently, or think about a problem differently. So it kind of just depends on the mood, quite honestly. And as I alluded to earlier, Spotify with the daily mix or like your suggested playlist makes it so easy now. You just kind of press and go. And I was actually running on the weekend, and I was thinking about kind of losing track of time or losing track of space. And the only time you're brought back to that is if there's a song you don't like, or there's a song you're like, oh, how did this make the playlist? Like, and it kind of snaps you back into. Otherwise, you're just, sometimes for me is like, you're just in this flow of, you don't even remember the songs. You don't even remember the time. It just helps the time kind of go by, and you get in this flow state through that, just that extra sensory experience.
And I reckon with your life, with daddy duties and business and whatnot, there isn't a whole lot of time where it's like, oh, I can sit on the couch and actually get into an album. That is your time for music these days, I reckon. Yeah, you're right. There's that time, and there's the 15 minutes on the way home
from school drop off or summer camp drop off. That's literally my only time to myself. And I've actually started to listen to this. It's called the Dissect Podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a one-man show. It's really cool. Where this guy, he literally dissects albums. So he's listening to all the music and the beats and the transitions and the lyrics and the storytelling, and he's kind of like making his own theories on, you know, what certain words mean and certain phrases mean and how the album's put together. And it's actually given me such a deeper appreciation for music and musicians, because of the intricacies that go into making music, that I never really had an appreciation for as just like someone with no musical talent. I have no idea how things get put together. I have an opinion on whether it sounds good or not based on what I like. But I've been like addicted to it. I've been like caught sitting in the driveway after drop off. Like, I need 5 more minutes of Dissect this morning so I can finish that episode. So, yeah, it's kind of been a cool journey just to understand just the process of making music and how it all comes together.
Well, we're sitting in the presence of Chris, who is he probably could have his own Dissect podcast on many things, music plus politics, but because he used to be in many bands, so he's the real deal.
It's an easy way to turn people off, start chirping on about records. I think I'll just stick to asking people what they like or if they like the music. But for geeks like myself, it can really be a stress. It's a stressor for people you're with because they don't really care generally. I do want to ask you though, and I'm sorry to interrupt. So you've got the kids in the car, and you're going to camp, or you're going to sports, or you're just going to school. Are you playing them your music in the car yet?
Great question. So my wife and I had a moment maybe 3 months ago when our daughter started singing, reciting lyrics from a Pop Smoke song that we thought it was probably time to change the channel. So because my wife is born in Maine. So she's got this like countryside. She loves country music. She also went to school in Boston. We love the same type of, you know, rap and hip hop. So she's kind of straddles that line. So she's okay to like flip it over to the country channel. And I'm like tearing my hair out. I'm like, I'd rather not listen to anything. So my musical, or the ability for me to play what I like, is probably gone for quite some time now until our kids get older and stop repeating the words they hear on the radio.
Yeah.
We had a previous guest on, Jennifer Robertson, who she likes this band, Jukebox the Ghost, and but she doesn't even know why she likes it. It's just one of those things that pops up, and she says, I can't explain why I like it. I probably shouldn't, but I like it. No one else likes it. Her daughter, and I think her daughter's maybe 12, 13, somewhere in that range, and hates it. So her daughter, for Mother's Day, gave her a coupon, and the coupon, she could redeem it if she wanted to play Jukebox the Ghost in the car. So wait for your kids to get into the negotiation game.
Yeah, the coupons will start flying.
Yeah, I'll be okay with that. I'm happy with that initiative that the daughter showed there. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What's the
yeah, Chris.
Sorry, Brad, you go ahead. I know I had just a quick local question. Is there a music scene in Maine? I mean, I can tell you, I have two references. I went to a Grateful Dead show in Portland, Maine.
Yep.
In the summer of '85, maybe. Can't remember a lot about it. And a good buddy of mine went to Colby College in Waterville, Maine. And I swung down there a couple times for some shows, and for like most liberal arts colleges in the '80s, they were part of the college touring thing. And I mean, is it a bar band scene, or is there a town music scene, or is there a local bands that just do the tour and covers? I'm just fascinated regionally what the music scene looks like. Not necessarily for you as a parent, because having been there, you're not going out to a lot of bars.
We're not going anywhere. Yeah,
no, exactly.
we moved here November of last year, having spent 2 years in Boston before. So, you know, I know that there, and then most of that time obviously has been during the pandemic when there was nothing happening at all.
Of course.
There's some venues here. I know there's a Thompson's Point is a local venue that's been really refurbished. It was kind of like vacant land that now they have a summer concert series where they'll have, whether it's you know, a lot of it is country leaning, so it's kind of, I guess, focused on what the local market likes. So it'll be, you know, country music artists. I remember the National playing here a couple of summers ago, and I had quite a few friends actually go from Boston to see that show. And yeah, so I think that's probably the best kind of local outdoor summer vibe, summer concert series. I have no idea about like bar scene music.
You won't for a while
at all. So yeah, I, that's kind of my only reference for local at this point.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Travis, we're going to not take up too much more of your time, so just going to ask you some quick questions, and this leads right into it. When you do have a window of opportunity, or when the grandparents take over for the kids, you know, and you and Lauren, okay, great, we're gonna go see a concert. Who would you really, really like to see? Who's on your list that you're like, man, if they're coming close, or, you know, we can go into Boston, we're going to go see them. Who would you really like to see the most?
Yeah, great question. If I could see another artist again, it would be Kanye West. And I've seen him quite a few times, that was actually one of my first concerts I went to in Australia was at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. He did a show in 2007, I think, or 2008, it might've been. Saw him in concert with Jay-Z in Toronto, saw him at Coachella. And he's probably like my favorite all-time artist. So I would drop anything and go and see a Kanye West show. But I think, you know, the question about what Lauren, so they have quite a lot of great shows at Fenway, and she has had some great memories of going to Fenway with her family and her parents and seeing like Billy Joel or James Taylor or so I would definitely suck it up and go and just enjoy a show with her at a stadium like at a show like at Fenway, where, you know, it's as much about the atmosphere and the as it is about the actual show and the entertainment value of it. And I think even more so now with, like, given that we've all missed out on so much of that stuff, that those experiences I don't think I'll take for granted again. You know, the ability to go and see a show or be with a bunch of people and look around and see people have joyous moments together. Example of that, a quick aside. So I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, maybe 2 months ago for the Ironman event there. We went to this bar called Sound Pony, and it's this dive bar in the middle of Tulsa. That's a famous kind of cycling bar. They have an event there called the Tulsa Tough. So they've got all this cycling memorabilia on the wall, and they rolled out the karaoke machine, and it was this eclectic mix of people. It was like anyone and everyone you could imagine. If you lined up one of everything, there was one of everything in the bar. And I was like, this is so cool to see, because what was happening is all these people were getting up, they were doing their song, everyone was listening, clapping, there was no judgment, there was no oh, that's terrible. And there was some terrible, you know, people and singers, probably like I would be on the bottom of that list if I went up there. But it was the joy that I saw in everyone's eyes, not only the people that were up there, the people that were listening. It was just this moment of like, man, we are so lucky, and I'm so grateful that I'm able to experience this with people that I'll never see again in an environment that I'll never probably be in for a long time in the future. But it was just this really cool moment of joy that, you know, I want to get back to more of that, whatever that is. Just seeing people have fun and be together and just, you know, put everything aside for a few minutes and just have some fun and joy.
Yeah, we've already established, since you've got your mama's genes, that you're not going to fly up to the karaoke mic, but we had a staff party, and it was a karaoke event, which I was just dreading. And the deal was you wrote down a person's name and you selected the song for them, which both of those things I was dreading. Don't write my name and what kind of a song. But if you were in that situation and, you know, Travis's name came up, what song do you think, oh God, at least I have a chance of pulling this off?
Yeah. Well, if I was one of your staff members, I would have quit on the spot. Just let's be clear. But you own the joint, so you couldn't really leave. So I used to, because at a time I was like, if I'm going to go out and have fun and do karaoke, I have to have something that I've like rehearsed or I can at least kind of put my name to, like everyone does. So I spent a lot of time working on "Welcome to Miami," a Will Smith song.
Yes.
And it never got any better. It was always like boo. I was getting booed off stage every time. It was, well, in my mind I did. In my mind I did. I don't know if it happened, but yeah, it was awful, man. It was so bad. But that would be probably like if someone had a gun to my head and said, "You've got to sing a song," that would be the one that I would go for.
Yeah. Chris, I got a few more, but do you have any quick questions that you want to, hear?
No, Travis has hit this all out of the park. I have a couple takeaways though. Here's my takeaway from spending some time with you two. Flow state means something completely different when you're 57. I can tell you that. For me, qualifying for Hawaii means answering the question, "Did you pack your bag yourself, sir?" My last takeaways are, I can't run for shit. And the only upside to this whole conversation is that I could beat you both in an art contest. That's it. That wasted year of my life in art school in Italy probably helped me to have the only upper hand I could have with you two in a room at any given point.
Yeah.
Well, and plus you could thrash a guitar, so I think you got us there too. Absolutely.
Yeah, but no one stays in the room.
Yeah. Take the wins when you can get them, Chris. I like your style.
Trav, it was just great to meet you. This has been great fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Hey, Travis, you know the final question coming your way, my friend. The whole idea, we tried to get as much out of you to give us some clues, to give us some musical references, but now you get to tell us, what kind of mixtape are we making for you?
You know what? I think a mixtape that takes me back to those monumental moments in my life, that I can put myself in a room, or I can put myself at a venue, or I can put myself on the bike, or I can go back to thinking about where I was in that moment. It's like a trend. I don't know what the word is, but I guess transplanting me back to those moments in life that I can have those vivid memories around.
Oh my word. Okay. I'm going to throw in a little Lululemon. There's 4 years of Lululemon, so I might have to bring in some of our mutual friends and get some help.
Yeah. Feel free to do that. I don't know if I've given you enough for that. Sounds like I've given you a hard task here.
You know what? Chris and I laugh when we make the selections. We're like, that's not what they asked for at all.
Not even close. No. I'm gonna have to toss in a few gems. My son's introduced me to an Australian band. You may or may not know them, called the Skeggs.
I haven't.
You're gonna love them. No. So I have to do this. I have to put a Skeggs in there because I've been bragging about them to Brad. And so there'll be one Skeggs. I'll promise you that. This is going to be a tough assignment.
Do you want me to leave some more breadcrumbs? Will that help?
No, I like the challenge. Brad,
okay, go for it. Okay, done.
No. We fill in the blanks. That's what we do. You give some details and some broad strokes, and now it's up to us to fill in the blanks. And halfway through, when we make our selections, we'll be 30 minutes in. I swear to God, I always say to Chris, I'm like, I don't think they're gonna like this.
Well, I'm going to be grateful for whatever, because what you guys are doing and the way that you're doing this is so cool. I think I've said it many times, the world doesn't need another podcast or another show about the same thing, talking about the same things over and over again. So what you guys are up to and what you're doing is super cool. And I think having something to give back to the guest and having something for me to take away is is really unique and really cool. So kudos to you both for doing this.
Right on. Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I really appreciate it, because I love your I love Inner Voice, and you're a special human being, and I think I think the world of you. So thanks for taking the time, and we look forward to giving you a gift.
Amazing. I can't wait.
Right
Thanks,
on.
Travis.
Okay, thanks. See you. All right. So Chris and I had a lot of fun with this, because it was some hard charging stuff. Chris could get into a little bit of the punk scene, and then the urban environment. We dabbled in that. So here's our selections for Travis's playlist. Hope you enjoy. Remember Travis saying that he wanted to kind of know, have the playlist like for points in his life, like you remember this moment and that moment. And so I kind of like, I cottoned on to like that Big Day Out festival. So that'd be with all of these mates in Australia. Remember, he said they went to that summer festival all the time. And I was thinking of bands for that. And then I thought about that. He said in 2005, he went to America for the first time as a mountain bike lead or something in New York State. So I was thinking about that time where his introduction to rap and hip hop and the urban storytelling. Sure. And then I kind of got that middle part of like a little bit of Lululemon and preparing for, he's talking about preparing for Arizona Ironman and climbing the Arizona hills and listening to, I think Meek Mill about trials and tribulations of life in Philadelphia. And then I think of like present day in a certain sense, his present day is all about survival, but I threw on some stuff there. So anyways, that's what I was thinking with this playlist. And I tell you, I listened to her playlist. I was doing some driving today and I had it on Spotify. I like it because it's a lot of fun. Like it's upbeat, which is very much my style. But I don't know a lot about these bands, I put on Grinspoon, I got Regurgitator, like these Australian bands. And like, I've never heard of them before, but they were at that festival. So there's a very good chance that he did. And he did mention Grinspoon. So anyways, shall we just start and see where we go?
And just so you know where I'm coming from, I chose to do a regional approach to it. I knew where you were going with it. You had mentioned before. So rather than step on your heels as we move through, I chose a regional approach to his travels and travails and where he ended up. So we're going to be visiting some bands from his homeland, from his adopted nation, and some bands from where he now resides. So it's a regional delicacy platter.
Well, and it's funny. I looked at a few on your list. I'm like, I can't wait for the explanation. Once again, you've got me guessing.
Why don't you launch it and we'll get the party started. So I want to know what your first one up is.
Okay, you just froze a little bit, Chris.
Oh, you did too.
Oh,
okay,
there we go.
We're back. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You're good?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I started with Grinspoon. He mentioned this band as being one of these Australian bands that he liked, and I think they would have been a Big Day Out festival. And I chose Hard Act to Follow just because I like the song. And it's a song that is so not Travis. It's about heroin addiction. Yep. But I like because it's talking about heroin addiction, and when you do heroin, well, nothing can compare to that. So anything else is that's a hard act to follow. Once you get into heroin, any other drug pales to it. And what I was thinking though is like, but you're a musician, you played music, and just in all of our lives, we've done certain things. And what to us is like when we've seen something or done something, like when is it like, okay, well, I guess I'm done. And I kind of relate to 3 weeks ago when I was paddling with the whales. Like I walked around aimlessly for a couple of weeks because the fact that, or for a couple of days, because the fact I'm like, well, now when I go paddle, I will never have that kind of experience ever again. That is a hard act to follow, being 100 meters away from the orcas, and I don't know, that's the part of the lyrics that I kind of, I just thought about, even though it's, so I kind of want to pose the question to you, musically or life experience wise, what has been like a peak or something that's happened to you? You were like, well, I guess I'm done. I'll never do that again.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It more or less boils down to musically who you get to play with and the magic that happens. And this is either someone's basement or on a stage. It doesn't really matter where, but it's tough to replicate a time and place where something where lightning strikes and it just feels perfect. And it's probably never going to happen again. So you just enjoy it while it happens. And I'm not trying to quantify it in terms of the size of a crowd or how great the show was, but it's more about I could reckon that it's closer to who you're played with and how you pulled it off, or just the ear to ear grins when you're just looking at each other, and it's just so much fun. And it's not going to happen again. That it can't happen again,
but especially
for
you
a variety
seeing shows.
Of reasons. Oh yeah, exactly. And if you're a little bit in tune, that when a band is coming to its logical conclusion, and you're never going to see it again. It's sort of a time to take it in and just enjoy it while you can. Maybe it's something like taking like elderly parents on a cruise to the old neighborhood or something. That. Not to put too fine a point on it, but that the sand is peeling out of the hourglass pretty fast, and you need to take advantage of it because it's not coming back. It's just nice to grab onto it and not pull out your phone and not try to do anything else but suck it in and enjoy it for what it is. And it's imperfect. It may very well be imperfect. I mean, a lot of band moments are imperfect. And I can tell you, the last time I saw the band, one of my all-time famous, the Thermals, out of Portland. The last time I saw them, I knew it was the last time I'd see them together. And they just looked like they were doing it for fun. It was over, but they were doing it for fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. What are you going to lead with?
I took a lob with Graceless and by the National, and the reason I did was because I was connecting with the port where Trav was discussing his own recovery after the accident, and how important, to a degree, that music was important to him, almost because it was one of the things that he could grab onto. Being pretty broken, he needed something to grab onto. He was intimating that music was pretty important. And the reason I chose Graceless is mostly because of the title. This is a guy who was a top flight athlete. And in my head, I was thinking, well, during his recovery, the physical punishment that he took in the accident and the recovery after, he must have felt completely graceless. That's not what the song's about, but he would have felt incomplete, and the journey to get back to where he can compete again, which is by any stretch a miracle that he was able to, even to perform at the is a medical miracle. So they should have, I don't know if they could have put that lightning in a jar or what during his recovery, but the song is so layered, and it's a bit of a wide open song in terms of its lyrical content. But I just thought, he must have felt, when he was trying to get back on the bike or trying to back and get into the run, and remembering how good he was before, how graceless he must have felt, and then getting to the point where he was great again, must have been an incredible experience.
Absolutely. So, like there was a chance he wasn't walking again, it was pretty dark.
Sure. Yeah. And it's a great song.
Great song. Absolutely. It is a great song. And I love just reading about the making of the video. They had a lot of fun with the video, and they ended up like riding their bicycles into the pool, and they did like 3 takes of it. They did 3 takes of it, and the one guy wears glasses, and they wiped out, and by the end they all had black eyes.
It was shot in the front yard of Matt's house at his parents' place. So they just destroyed his. Well, I mean, parts of it were. I'm not sure if it was the pool, if the pool was Matt's parents' pool, but they filmed a lot of it at his parents' place, and apparently just trashed the house like like it was like a teenage party or something like that. But I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see the National live, and if you haven't, I highly recommend them. But Matt enjoys some fine wine during each performance, and as he gets more and more lubricated, there's an intensity in his performance that increases, and it's just fantastic. They are an incredible band live.
That is that's quite the tightrope to walk, to get the right balance of just enough wine.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to pull it off, and he has this thing where he likes to wander through the crowd and share his wine, which probably which you might not see anymore.
No, that was pre-COVID.
No.
For
Yeah,
sure.
Share a little wine with Matt. It's good.
Love it.
But do it if they come to Van City. Hop on that one, please.
Oh, I definitely will, because they've come a couple of times, and once again, it's been one of those things where I'll see him one day, and now one day has come. We'll just. Hey, I went to another Aussie band for the start of it, and Regurgitator, and I did their song Game, and this band, and I do want to get Prevail and Madchild on this show. They're Swollen members, which I really like. This Vancouver band, and sure. But they have that sound to them. I'm like, God, I keep hearing Swollen members when I listen to them. But what's kind of cool about Regurgitator is that they actually pitched and successfully filmed a reality show in terms of, did the album that this is off of, the album is called Mishmash, and they shot it in a bubble. They lived in a bubble for 3 weeks, and they had cameras rolling nonstop. It was on a channel in Australia, and it was them living inside of a bubble. Mom, who's a great cook, opened this window and gave them food while in the bubble, and they recorded this song and the whole album in the bubble.
Okay, that's cool.
And that's got to be steamy. This is Australia. That's a sweaty bubble.
No kidding.
Good Lord. But I'm kind of, I read these things and I'm like, okay, they're really fastidious about like, okay, you can't leave for meals and this and that. But I'm like, you did leave. You got to go to the washroom, Yeah.
Laundry would be an interesting thing after all that time.
Yeah.
Laundry would be a priority. Things would get funky.
Yeah, it would be really funky in there. So I'm amazed. They knocked off a great song that I love, and I don't know the rest of the album, but good on them. 3 weeks read an album. It's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm following you with an Australian band. Back to his roots, but it's a new band, a new-ish band. A band that my son turned me on recently. I mentioned it to you before, the Skeggs, and they're a power poppy punk fun band. And the song I chose is "Down to Ride," because I think Trav would be down to ride anytime. I liked it was an Australian band, and I liked the song. Totally great fun song, but down to ride. He'd be down to ride. You want to go riding? Yeah, I'm down to ride. I just think that it's an offering to him, a gift from contemporary sled on music. Nothing that he's ever heard, but I mentioned it when we were talking, so I thought I'd serve that one up on a platter and see if he liked it in his mix.
Well, it's funny you say down to ride anytime, because I am pretty sure I met him before we had known who we each other were, because when we opened Nook in Kitsilano, I'm pretty sure it was him that reached out to us and wanted to start this lunch program. So he met him in his office, and he had his bike there. So, and he was meeting up with someone came into town and said, yeah, we're going for a ride. So that's exactly what Travis definitely pre-present life was always down for a ride. You nailed it. You hit the nail on the head. Hey, there's a description of this band from one article, and they are classified as a slack rock band. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's in the great tradition of shoegazers. You're familiar with the term shoegazers?
Yeah.
I'm sure you are. I got to tell you, I think that the fact of the matter is this is a bunch of jokers who quite intentionally do not take the music portion seriously. I think that they are. It's like Superchunk's song "Slack Motherfucker." Great song, by the way. I just think that that's a pretty apt description. I think that they're good time guys, and I think that they are seeing this as a limited time offer, and they're just out to have fun. I don't think they're going to conquer the world. I don't think they're trying to be Sum 41. This is how I see it.
Well, I think you probably nailed it, because it actually goes on. It says, they remind you of walking bare feet, being sunburnt with stiff hair, and thanks to sea salt. And they have a song called LSD, and it's not about LSD. It's live, sleep, die. So they are. So that, I guess you nailed it. I should have put two and two together, because that definitely is what they're all about. Just like having fun and spending time on the beach and making enough money to keep going.
I just owe that to my son. Turned me on to them, and he plays them quite a bit, and totally fun. So yeah. Good. I'm glad you like that one. Great, because
right on. You know what? I just got one more in this, and I don't know too much about this band, Unwritten Law, and they did a song "Seeing Red," and they're a California band, but they were huge in Australia for some reason. So yeah, I don't have too much to add to this. They did trash a drum set in Australia, because apparently in Australia you have to be off stage by midnight, which probably seems relatively reasonable for an outdoor thing, I think. And they ended up trashing something, so I thought you'd like that.
No one loves drum kits getting trashed more than me.
But apparently it was like this collector set, like something that was really, really precious. It wasn't their B kit. It was the good one.
Well, if you're gonna fuck something up, go all the way.
Does that? This answer then. I always cringe when I see guys trash their equipment. I'm like, don't you fall in love with guitars? Don't you fall in love with certain pieces of equipment, and then you trash it? Like I don't know. Like, I know that everyone who I know has guitars. You have guitars. I don't think you'd ever want to put a dent into it. You love them.
There's some I'd smash, given the opportunity, for sure. Some I have smashed, for sure. And
isn't there ever a moment of hesitation? You're like,
look, smashing your instruments has always been more of a personal politics statement. Certainly Pete Townsend was smashing guitars he couldn't afford to smash when the band was making no money. And then, of course, the problem becomes that it becomes an expected part of the performance. I think the first smashed instrument was probably because maybe in Pete's case, I don't know for sure. Maybe he was just pissed at Roger or something, or pissed at himself, or he's having a shit night and he just smashed it, and then it became a thing. Later, Cobain loved to smash his guitars, but he never smashed his best guitars. At the end of the show, he'd switch to a duplicate Mustang, and he played lefty, and he just beat the crap out of a yard sale guitar, and that was sort of it. And as much as people were critical of Cobain's performance, because again, it became expected. It was going to be part of the show where Kurt smashes a guitar as part of his personal politics. But John Hyatt famously wrote a song called "Perfectly Good Guitar," which is a great dialogue on why the fuck would somebody smash a good guitar? I mean, you save up all your money for this guitar, and some idiot, and it's a terrific thing. I have demolished a couple guitars, and they have never been ones that I couldn't afford to demolish, because I'm a shit player. I'm just not stupid.
Well, that was good insight, because I had a sneaky suspicion that they might swap out guitars just before they smash.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Where do you want to go?
Again, I was moving more in the direction of Trav as a competitor and the way he was describing that process, and you were discussing the expectations and the pressure on him at some point. And in my head, I was thinking of the War on Drugs song, Under the Pressure. And I couldn't, and that was just cycling around, because in the conversation, I was so extant to it. I mean, you guys have a kinship with that discipline, and I obviously don't. But in that, in the conversation you were having, I was hearing that rhythm and stuff, and I knew immediately. I scribbled it down right when we were speaking to Travis. I said, okay, you have to have War on Drugs, Under the Pressure in there. I love that song. And it's not telling the story necessarily of his connection to that, but it fit well, I thought, in the conversation, in the context of the conversation that was slightly more connected between you and he.
Right. Yeah. So, and pressure changes, right? Like, he the pressure that he had early on, and then, man, like, I mean, he's starting, like, he's in on ground floor on a really big company right now. But I kind of sensed it with and he wants to do great things. Like that calendar club that we did, but he has to, like, make sure that he's there for every breakfast and every bedtime, and making time for his wife. And it's like, it's different pressure, but I think from what I know of Travis, I think he thrives off it. He needs a little bit of pressure. He seems to have had it quite a bit in his life.
Yeah, and having been down that road myself, and come out the other side, there's so much value in doing it, so it's worth the effort. You have to make that connection, and you have to, as exhausted as you might be, you have to do it. You got to pull out all the stops. I mean, there's no second chance. You have a second chance if you screw up a race. You have another chance. Mm-hmm. But if you screw up your parenting time, you're fucked. It's over. Like, there's no do-overs. And and then he made, he was speaking in a little bit of that context, that it was a hard time to juggle it all, and it is. Yeah, it's exhausting. But
I can only imagine, and I will only imagine.
he had the right attitude, and he's pulling it through. He's not missing anything, and I think that was the key thing about his connection to the music. He doesn't want to miss anything, and he finds another gear so he doesn't. Yeah, he's a fascinating guy.
No, he most certainly is. Yeah. Hey, so I have now arrived to his 2005 time, where he has entered America, and he's in New York State for a summer, I think. But this is his introduction to rap and hip hop. I'm sure there was a little bit in Australia, but this is the real deal. Yeah. And so I went with Get It Poppin', Fat Joe and Nelly, and okay. And I've seen a number of rap documentaries. There's so much good stuff on Netflix, and I love watching them, because I love watching the where they came from and all their associations. And it's amazing to me how many of these people, like, work together at one point. Their paths cross all the time, and I think it's because of the fact that hey, anyone can rap. No, not many people can do it well, but you and I could rap right now. It's not like, it's not an exclusive club. You know what I mean? So the entry, and especially if you're living in hard times, it's like a way out. It's basketball in a certain sense. But what I love is that almost all these groups have beefs with someone. So this one, Fat Joe, he's in a lot of these documentaries, and he's really well loved, but he's got that 50 Cent beef, where him and 50. They do not get along at all, and in the lyrics in many of their songs, they are at each other. So once again, as a spectator, I love that shit. Sure. Who's after who? And so he sang this one with Nelly, and Nelly's going to come up in this a number of times, because that guy, he works with a lot of people. But anyways, great song. Fat Joe's a New York guy, so that's your Travis connection. He would have heard this in 2005 for sure.
I pushed a little forward on the calendar to his Toronto days, and I pulled out, and I knew he was more into. He had a great story about the girlfriend. His girl.
I love it.
That was a good
I tried.
but I had to go. I had to wave the Canadian flag and throw in Maestro Fresh West, because Let Your Backbone Slide is a couple of things. It was important. It was important in it may have been derided, maybe, unless you were in the scene immediately, but this is something that's absolutely critical to the foundations of the Toronto scene at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And internationally regarded song. And I'll tell you, you play that song and you are in a certain time and place in Toronto, because you heard it all the time, and it was just a killer song, and I love it. Maestro Fresh West doesn't never had the type of beefs that some of the Americans like to have, and I think that's where I'm conflicted, because if you go back, if you rewind the tape to Gil Scott-Heron, whose lyrics were so politically driven, Whitey on the Moon, and all these other so important things. He was so caught up in the politics at the time, he didn't have time for beefs. And I think that given an opportunity, he'd say, like, you've got great stories to tell. What are you picking fights for? We've got to pull the rope in the same direction. And I think all of those sort of East Coast, West Coast stuff diluted the content to the point where a lot of the songs had a lot of the conflict written into them. And I know that pushed the agenda forward. I know it was important, but I think that some of these artists had a whole lot more to say. Let Your Backbone Slide is whimsical. It's hilarious. It's got a killer vibe, and it's another song. And you and I have discussed this before. You throw that on, everyone's having a good time.
Absolutely.
Everyone knows
if I was a DJ at a wedding, it would go on.
Everyone's having a good time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Trav even knows, or if it's even an important one. But I put that in because the time that he described in Toronto and the great story about his girlfriend, I just wanted to just go outside of that envelope and tuck that one in. Just a little nugget for him.
Hey, our friend Maestro Fresh West is a full-time actor now.
He I mean, what was he in? He cut his teeth well. He was in Jerry D's show. He was a teacher
8
in Mr.
seasons
D.
as the vice principal. Yeah.
And he had a terrific role there. I'm not a huge fan of the show, but some of the characters in there, his was a great one. His was a terrific character, and super talented guy. I mean, he's, not many people can do things well, and he does. I'd love to see him see him do more music. A couple of years ago, my cousin was in Markham running a charity event, and Maestro Fresh West was the musical act, and it was awesome. It was so good. It was great. It was seamless. I loved it.
Now, when you see him though, is everyone just waiting for that one song?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's got to suck for him.
It's got to suck for him, because I'm sure his back catalog is fantastic. But if you're people ask, would you rather be a one-hit wonder or never have anything? And it's tough. It's a chicken and the egg situation.
But when you do those events, do you lead with that? Because everyone's waiting for it, so they aren't listening. They're getting frustrated with your other stuff that you're trying to, play a few songs before that. Do you just let them have Backbone Slide and then come after that?
I think you have to throw in a couple. I mean, he's got to have a fairly vast catalog of his own music. But when do you put that in? I think you have to end on it.
I know you're supposed to end on it, but everyone's anxious. Like, now you've played 3 songs and they know you're only going to play 4 or 5. And it's like, they're like, is he going to do this? Is he not going to let us have this? You know? So I just rather just lead with this and get everyone cranked, you know? And then they won't be so like in angst, and they won't start throwing stuff. And then every time you, like, as soon as the song ends, you're like, let your back one slide, you know, like they're just going to start screaming that. And you're like, okay, just get it over with, you know?
There you go. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Good point.
So, I got a few more from New York days. But he made no secret that he loves Kanye West, you know, especially the College Dropout album. And so I was thinking of, you know, that time, of course, but I was thinking of Kanye West. He had his finger in a lot of pie. Like, he wrote a lot for Jay-Z, produced a lot of stuff. But before he started rapping, like before he started doing his own thing, he was in Jay-Z's studio all the time. It was amazing, because that one documentary I saw, I was like, oh my God, there's more Kanye. And he would be that obnoxious little brother type where he would stand up on the table and a down moment and start rapping his own songs. And everyone's like, can just shut up, you know, sit down. We don't want to hear any of this. Like, they thought for sure he was the worst rapper of all time. And then of course he went on to, exactly. Like, they're like, this guy can't rap. He can write like crazy, but he can't rap. So I'm pretty sure he had, I'm not sure if he actually was, if he wrote Dirt Off Your Shoulder. I think he did, but in any event, it's one of my favorite Jay-Z songs. And it was around that time. It was the Black Album. And then another one I picked from this time is This Way with Dilated Peoples. And that's with Kanye West. And they did, and it's, it might be one of the worst videos of all time. So it's going on the website for sure. It's just awful. And they were big in the underground hip hop scene. And once again, it had Kanye West in there, and he helped them write this song. So anyways, there was my two contributions there. Little Jay-Z, little Dilated People, and lots of Kanye.
I've been, geez, that's crazy. I'm once again standing right on your heels. And I went with 2 words, Kanye's song, track 2 words, only because I know virtually nothing of his music. I have not been a fan. I think he's batshit crazy, which is great and entertaining, and so on and so forth. But I got to tell you, I really like that song, and I threw it in there because, you know, if that's what our guests ask for, I got to give them the only one that I really like a lot.
Well, did you listen? Like, did you actually break down that song? Because I didn't even. I just knew that the title of it, 2 words, but it's actually using 2 words and then moving on to the next thing. It's a brilliant way of writing a song that I've never heard before.
So the construct, you know, instead of the sort of verse chorus thing, the 2 words selected takes you on to the next section virtually every time. It's a springboard to the next section of ideas and the next section of ideas. And so it's actually not 2 words, it's a bunch, but the 2 words are a power punch, a gut punch as you move into the next one. And I found that a really interesting way to present the song. You're super unique, and a great, you know, I think it's a great listen. And of course, you know, I'm, because of my age and near transparent pigmentation, I need to look up the words to everything. Everything.
Well,
fucking everything.
Well, hey, when we're going through this stuff, and I'm reading more lyrics, and I find when I listen to rap and hip hop, I know the chorus and I know a few words here and there, but I never know the details. And when I actually read this one, I'm like, holy Jesus! Like, there's quite the journey there that I've never been on. You know?
Yeah. Well, for me, it begins and ends with Gil Scott-Heron and Linton Kwesi Johnson, and there's so much in there in context in the beautifully crafted word, and I can hear it. But you know, with modern music, I'm, you know, I got to put on the hearing aids. I got to get on the thick glasses, and you know, it's sinister, but it's the only way I'm going to be able to comprehend it.
Yeah, no, I get it. So I now 2012. So I went with he mentioned Meek Mill, and once again, this is like from your previous one, I went with a touch of Toronto because he sings this with Drake. So there's a little bit of Drake there, and love the song, and pretty sure this is what he was listening to in Arizona. Talking about Meek Mill being a Philadelphia guy, and that type of thing. He had his run-ins with the law, but now he's quite known as he did a Netflix documentary with Jay-Z, because of the fact that he got thrown in jail like a lot of black people for parole violation, and he was thrown in jail for like a 4-year stint, like something outrageous, where just one of those, just like find any excuse in some state to throw away the guy forever. And he got out within like 6 months or so, but they did a documentary on parole reform, and it was like Jay-Z, I think, is behind it, and someone else, but that's what he's up to, and they formed an organization. And so I do like the fact that he was definitely given some lemons, and now he's making change in the world. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that Travis likes this song, or likes this artist. So there we go. That was more of like, I picked up that nugget from Travis, and I've never listened to Meek Mill before, but there you go.
There you go. I not willing to leave well enough alone, I had to revisit the girlfriend story with the fascination with electronic music. And is there a cheesier song on the planet than Unbelievable?
It's fun though.
It's a fun song. Ecstasy motherfuckers, or whatever they claim that they're that it truly stands for. But to add to the formaggio of this,
I know where you're going, Mr. MySpace.
There's a well, and there's they sample Andrew Dice Clay.
That's what I mean, there. Mr. MySpace. Yeah, he was the king of MySpace.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Dice Clay. I mean, if there's a more contemptible hack than Andrew Dice Clay, some people just absolutely adore the guy, which is fun. It's not really my thing. I mean, I think his time came and went. I'm sure he'll send somebody to beat me up now, but I mean, whatever. But Unbelievable is a song that you kind of hear. If you go to a minor atom hockey game and kids skate around the ice and there's a 12-year-old doing the music, that's what you're going to hear. Unbelievable.
Wow. It is a fun song, but I didn't know that Andrew Dice Clay until I looked it up, because when you threw the song, I'm like, where did this come from? And then it's like every time you hear, oh, I'm like, oh my God, that's from his stand-up routine.
Yeah. Oh, and when I think of electronic music, and Rollin, I agree with Rollins 100%, in the fact that you're not a musician, you're a record player, and that's just the way that I'm gonna have to live and die. I'm gonna fall on that sword. But that song, just if I hear it, that says everything I need to know about the genre. And I may be wrong. I've been wrong a million times before, and I know there's gonna be a nasty. You're gonna get some bad feedback, but that's just the way. Hey, I feel. So that's what Trav gets. Unbelievable.
Well, this is 2 shows in a row that we've actually solicited bad feedback, and I didn't get it last show, so we're not. We have no more than 3 viewers so far, so we can't wait for people to actually start trashing the show.
No, there was one comment that I just, oh my God, I fell off my chair laughing. Somebody said that I looked like the guy from this show. And I looked it up. Oh my God, he is just an ogre. I was just absolutely dying laughing. I needed to find the guy and say, buddy, fucking bravo, because that is a home run. I'm not. I mean, it was so funny, and I'm gonna send you a picture of this guy. It was so good. It was such a good burn. I gotta bow down to this dude. I don't know who the hell he is, but he wins.
Where was the
day.
comment? Was it on Instagram?
Yeah, or Twitter. I don't know.
Great.
I don't know what.
That's great.
I don't know, and it was so good.
I'm just so happy we have an active follower. Somebody's commenting.
Well, you know, and even if it manifests itself in taking shots at me, any publicity is good publicity. I love this guy was so good. Now I want to be his friend so I can take more from this guy. He was so good. Where are you going after unbelievably bad?
Well, I am going with who Billboard described as his lyricism is Shakespearean.
Ooh.
Kendrick Lamar, who does have amazing lyrics, and his song King Kunta. And I love everything about this song. And I don't know if Travis requested this. I don't think he ever mentioned it, but there's something about, it was like in that 2012 time. So he would have been like training to this. And Kendrick Lamar is just, he's kind of a big deal. And I don't, when his song, the way I listen to rap and hip hop, it's got to be on a mix. So I don't even know what I'm listening to half the time. If I'm putting on something for a workout or for a long run and I pick this genre, half the time, and I go back to this, I'm like, oh yeah, I do love this guy, you know, but I had no idea he was singing this as opposed to that. Like I said, I do love this genre of music, but I never listen to an album front to back. You know, it's like, it's always in a mix somewhat. And his parents were music fans because he was named after Eddie Kendricks of the Temptations. So at least he had that going for him coming out of the chute. Yeah.
That's
but I don't
damn
think they were
cool.
a big. Yeah, I don't think they were a big musical family in terms of like, it's not like he had any leg up on anyone. I think they were in the welfare system and, you know, typical hard life. But yeah, his mom and dad loved the Temptations. So like, we're gonna call you Kendrick. So
I think you touched on something that's really important to things moving forward. You have an opportunity to be exposed to where other people pick the music through the workouts and all of that type of stuff. And I tend to be sort of the captain of my own musical destiny in that I don't find myself in situations where, I mean, lots of friends, you know, when we used to go check out music and stuff, hey, check this out. But I think you have a distinct advantage to more modern music because you were subject to other people's playlists, you know, in a spin class or something like that, which is great. And you can either say, God, I don't like this one, or fuck, I love this. I got to find out who this is. And that's really, and that's something I hadn't considered until you just mentioned that, is that I'm stuck in a rut of my own making. And you have access to fantastic new stuff. I mean, I rely on friends and more recently my kids who have fucking amazing taste in music, I think. But it just occurred to me. Yeah, you're in places, or sure, in the previous pre-COVID life, that you were there and people were saying, hey, check this out, or in a class somebody else was in control, and that's a great way to find out new music.
Well, I tell you, I actually get it daily, Chris. It's not even so much the organized stuff. It's I'm in the restaurants during the day when no one else is there. So the kitchen is constantly playing music that, and a lot of it is rap and hip hop. And so it is nonstop that I walk in there. I'm like, and I just walk over and look at the mix that they're on and then ask them. And I tell you, those guys, like, I mean, it's amazing for a lot of people in kitchens did not latch on to formal education and then lived life, and now they work in kitchens, and then they've really got their act together, especially when they come to Nook, because it's such a good environment and we want them to succeed, and they work hard and then move on or move up with us. But I tell you, their capacity, you know, to memorize and learn and discover music is unbelievable. I'm like, geez Louise, their recall is amazing, because I'll ask some question and it's like blah 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 blah, and it's part of my brain that I just like, it's just something that's kind of like wanders in there, and and stuff that I have to memorize. It's a bit different, but for them, man, if they're into music, if they're into something, they know it top to bottom, and it's really impressive, you know. So that's cool. That's where I get my music. It's from the kitchen.
Yeah, you know what? I hadn't even considered that. That's great. Damn cool.
Yeah. Wow. I love the backdrop has changed. You've lost lighting. We have the exact same backdrop now.
Yes, I am just in the trees, and the light is from my phone.
I love it. So all right, what do you got? We're getting close to
we're
getting through that.
Trav mentioned, and I'm going back and forth. I like to jump around a little bit, and I really see it more as a pacing of the mixtape. But he mentioned that the first band he really liked when he was a kid was Silverchair, a band that I never really quite understood. They were sort of I don't know if they were the Hanson of Australia or what, but they didn't really, they seemed to come out of the gates hard and get tons of publicity in North America, certainly in Canada. And you know, they had a growly presence and a guitar sound that matched the era perfectly.
Yeah.
And then the retro rockets never fired on phase 2, and that was kind of it. But even I can remember their song Tomorrow. They got tons of play, and I threw that one in for him, and thought, hey, I mean, and that was the music he liked doing when he was a kid, and you can't help but smile if you're in a car driving or if you're running, and inadvertently a song that you loved when you were young comes on. And I think that's part of the Roark mix premise is to peel back things, not necessarily peel back a scab, but maybe peel back something that you know might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable about your past. That's not the case. It's not my intention with Silverchair, but why not throw that one in? It's a pop hit, no question. But it's a song I'm sure that he wore a couple cassette tapes out to in his youth.
Yeah, it's so funny because I think I listened to it for like maybe 2 years and I haven't heard them since. That's I don't even know if they're still going, you know. But
no idea.
I do know they're friends with I think they're still respected in Australia because they were at the there was a tribute, kind of one of those sessions where everyone plays Midnight Oil songs, and there's a tribute for that. So they were included in that. So I think there's some respect for them there. You know, they wouldn't have been invited to that without Peter Garrett's blessing for sure. So,
yeah, for sure.
You know, Travis said something when he was talking about his crummy voice and you know, like, you know, as you mentioned, like, I mean, we're getting into some deep psychology here, and there's definitely some deep psychology to do with his how much he blames his mother for his voice. Yeah, big scarring there. And but he said his only role in music, and you know, he failed at the karaoke that he thought he could pull off, and he still knew that he stuck with that. But he said he could be a hype man. And when I think of hype man, I think of the DJ Khaled. You know, that I had this. And speaking about kitchen guys, in our first couple of years of Nook and Kitsilano, E-Man, who's now running our kitchens, he would have his mixes on, and man, he knew music. And I seem to be in there a lot in the mornings, and every fifth song in that year was like DJ Khaled. I'm like, oh my God, you know. And that's he produces a song, but he has to like throw that in there all the time. And then you know, Jimmy Fallon did this thing where they did lip sync contests. They got pretty popular. So he'd bring in, you know, whatever guest, and they would do a throwdown. And it seemed, you know, the first couple of times, like it seemed genuine, and then it seemed really orchestrated. Like they put a lot of thought into this. So it lost its luster pretty quick for me. But I remember Emma Stone did this song, and it kind of made me think of our previous guest, Elizabeth, because she said whenever she does karaoke, she just like, here's this blonde, blue-eyed girl that's going to hit it hard. You know, it's going to be a nasty rap song. And here's Emma Stone doing this song, and she did it brilliantly. And I am definitely putting this version up on the website because it's just, you're just like, she attacks it hard, and she, you know, lip syncs it pretty good. But it's funny at the end, at the longer version, and I don't think it's available on YouTube, But Jimmy's like, great, great, great. And he said, that was amazing lip syncing. She says, I was actually singing, you know, and it's so true when you do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's like she knew, and it's
You're
tough
into it.
because Ludacris comes in and he just throws down the rap, and it's a tough song. So I don't know. It just made me laugh because I could see Travis, you know, being the hype man for someone. He gets people excited. That's what he does in life, and he's yeah. So DJ Khaled, that's what you got. So
Nice.
there you go.
Nice. My so my final three picks are regional picks. They're musicians from the great state of Maine, and I've spent lots of time on the roads of Maine, lost, because there's no like. Here's the thing about driving around in Maine: there's no gas stations anywhere in Maine. I think it kind of felt to me like there was two, and getting lost in Maine. And it's so heavily wooded. The whole drive at night is really like a Blair Witch Project scene. It's just it's a shit show. But I love the state. I mean, I spent some time there, and it's amazing to me that you know, I asked him about the music scene. You know, when we had a conversation, and it is festival based because of the lack of a major city, I guess is something like that. So in as far as that goes, I picked three, and I'll probably just run through them just because they're all but one of my all-time favorite musicians, Juliana Hatfield. And who was I mean, had a lot of incarnations, but just such a solid performer. I'm not sure why. I think Juliana Hatfield should have been a woman musician who absolutely took off, and I'm just kind of can't make the connection about why she didn't. But I threw in a song called Fleur De Lis, which is actually en français. But it absolutely, it's a throwdown. It completely rocks out, and thought that I'd put that one in, and if I may, I think I'll just hit you with the last two.
But I got a question. When I think of Julian Hatfield, I think Patti Smith. You know, she reminds me of that. You know, really strong on stage, and you know, not a conventional voice per se. Like she can raunch it out.
Yeah. And no question, in the early incarnation with Blake Babies, and you know, more of a college rock sweetheart, but a terrific band in their own right. But her solo career is just so rock solid, and I don't think she got a fair shake. I think there was a lot of far lesser musicians who went further with far less than Juliana did. I just think that I've had an opportunity to see her live a bunch of times in sequence in the mid 90s, just hitting it through Lee's Palace. She seemed to roll through Lee's Palace once or twice a year. And it was a can't miss show. Absolutely terrific. So
did you see her solo, or did you see her with that band?
Well, I mean, the project was her solo. I think she kept a stable of pretty connected musicians through those years, but I never really got a sense that it was anything but a project where she would pick and choose who she wanted on that particular tour.
Okay, because I thought, did she not with the previous, like her original band? What were they called? The
Blake Babies.
Blake Babies. Yeah, Blake Babies. She played bass in them, and then she plays lead guitar now.
Yeah, I think she was just one of these multi-instrumentalist type of you know, performers who was able to jump around, and I think that provided opportunity in the studio too, where you didn't necessarily need a bass player to record the tracks. You know, you could do it and make it your own. I just think it was probably more out of convenience, and I can't really make a connection why she became, why she moved to guitar. I don't know if it was out of necessity, where she felt a stronger presence in terms of her own project, but God damn it, just a terrific performer and a kick-ass guitarist. I love her catalog front to back.
Well, you even look at the band she's worked with. Like she's worked with Dinosaur Jr. and Lemonheads too. Like, she can bring it. Like there's, and that's why I think she gives me that Patti Smith. It's just like, bold and unapologetic, and this is I'm going to bring it, like it or not.
Yeah.
I don't even care if you like
Exactly.
it.
No, that's a great. It's a great and very fair comparison.
Well, you said you had a couple. You're going to run them out. Let's do it.
Yeah. You know, another. I went with Collide, Howie Day. Another main boy, and again, it's just another. It's a terrific tune. I chose it based almost entirely on being from Maine, but it just happens to be a great. And then I rounded it out with Chainsmokers. And
that's the one I'm curious about. Because I'm like, where did Chainsmokers come from?
Well, you know, I think it. The band name is such an antithesis to Travis, right? I mean, like, okay, this makes absolutely no sense. But the song is called Closer, and the one that I liked the most was a version done with Halsey.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's I mean, there's a bunch of different versions, but that's the one that just grabbed me because of the killer vocalizations in there. It's just it just runs beautifully, and whether it's Closer or Closure or Closure, I liked a lot. I was able to make some connections to Travis through the song, and I thought, hey, you know what, Maine, let's run with it. Let's do it.
Oh, that's awesome, because you and I are kind of wound up in the same little way, because I want to do my last three, because the last three are like present day, and
okay.
Well, not necessarily present day songs, not at all actually, but just about like his life present day. And I love, and okay, when he said that he and his wife looked at each other when his oldest daughter started throwing down the Pop Smoke lyrics, they're like, okay, she can now understand what's going on. We might have to make some choices about what we're doing. Like, you must have those stories. Come on, like, of your kids like just saying the most inappropriate shit. But I know my business partners. There's a story about their daughter walking down the street and like singing some really inappropriate rap and just having no clue what's going on.
Those are called quality parenting moments, I think, you know, where everyone gives you the hairy eyeball, and it's also innocent, but I think that is a great way, content of the song notwithstanding, I think it's a great way to connect with the young ones too. You know, a car ride, you know, when I was a kid, didn't involve a lot of crank tunes. You know, there was an AM radio in the Ford Fairlane. I think that was about the best it was. But kids like it. It's more like an event. You have to get somewhere, and I'd rather the kids be just rocking out to some tunes than glued to an iPad or something like that. You can connect your music and environment. You can have a little conversation, and then of course you have to say, don't repeat those lyrics to your mother. Let's just let's keep that on the down low.
So that cracked me up, and then so I did the Woo, and then Hard Body by Big Shug, and he's a Boston guy, and he's also just like Snoop Dogg, he's a coach. Snoop Dogg's a football coach. Big Shug is a pretty serious basketball coach for kids. Now, you would love this. In around 2012-14, he was coaching these kids, and they lost in like the semifinals. And he said, damn, these kids sign up to hoop, but they can't hoop. They damn bad. So the parents lost their shit, and they're part of the Braintree Youth Basketball Organization. So they hold a meeting. He gets a 2-game suspension. Big Shug's not happy. Big Shug is pissed. So he takes it to the courts, and he wins on First Amendment freedom of speech. Doesn't get suspended, comes back the next year, wins the whole championship.
Oh, come on. That should be a 30 for 30.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be, for sure. I love these stories, but you know, I know you've had some time with soccer moms, and it's just crazy.
11 years of coaching kids hockey will taint you. It will destroy your will. But
everyone's got an opinion, and every kid's going to the NHL.
Every kid except mine is going to the show.
And then I did the last song. I wanted to have harmony in the house because Lauren loves country. Travis doesn't. So I did the Tim McGraw Nelly song over and over, which I think is amazing. And what's amazing is that Nelly, St. Louis boy, came out with Country Grammar. He just killed it for years and years.
Absolutely.
But this guy was hitting it hard. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to show everyone. And he does all these collaborations with pop collaborations, country collabor. He sings so many country collaborations. He's with the Straight Line, Georgia Straight Line. I forget how that goes, but that one is called Cruisin', which is super popular today.
Yeah.
But this one's my favorite. Like, I mean, you actually listen to this and there's parts of it you don't know who's singing. It's absolutely It's a great song. So I know that they can both have their way with this one being played in the house. They both get their fix. So
a great pick and a great way to wind it up. A little bit of a gift to Travis's better half.
Yeah, exactly. And Lauren is amazing. She's such a lovely lady. So all right, my friend, we knocked it out, and there we go.
Thanks.
So
Thanks so much.
Hopefully Travis loves this. Yeah.
I hope so.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us. And we got a few more people lined up in the coming weeks. So yeah, we'll have some fun with it. But until that time, listen to some great music. Hope you enjoy the playlist. Hope you enjoy this podcast, and go out and support your local record store. See ya.